Why do you think they choose Russia over Europe? Because you make a great point. I never thought about that. But that's clearly going to make everyone in Europe very nervous. But they could just as easily not overtly support Putin and support Europe and probably not have too much fallout. I mean, what do the Chinese really need from Russia? Okay, I guess they need their oil and gas, but Russia doesn't have a lot more they bring to the table, do they?
I think this kind of sometimes the Chinese sometimes talk about the rationale. They need the oil gas from Russia. You can get oil and gas from lots of other countries, and in fact, I think they get oil and gas at higher market prices than that they can find from other countries. It is definitely not for economic reason. Look at the size of the Russian economy. It is actually pitiful. It's about, GDP is about $1.7 trillion. 1.7 trillion is the size of a Chinese province, Guangdong province. It's about 1.7, 1.8. It's about the size of Texas. Okay, let's just say, for the sake of the argument, you get all of that. That's just one Chinese province. That's just one state in the United States. The total size of the US import market is roughly $3 trillion, almost twice of the Russian economy. The European size is probably bigger than the US import market. So you sacrifice the European market and the US market by pursuing a smaller market. And by the way, the size of the market is just one factor. The other factor is the margin. Russia is a very poor country, poor economy. So you can sell all the stuff that you produce, but at a lower margin. You are not making as much money as you would if you would sell to Europeans and the Americans. There's absolutely zero economic reason to go with Russia at the expense of relationship with Europe, at the expense of the relationship with the United States. Although these days, the relationship between Russia and the United States now is getting really interesting and complicated. So let me not talk about that relationship. Let's just talk about the European relationship, right? So there's really no economic rationale. It is for ideology and politics. There's something very curious about Chinese kind of a political mentality.
Peter Thiel took $500,000 and turned it into $1 billion using the exact same techniques we're using inside the investment club. He met a CEO, his name was Zuckerberg. He pitched him the deal and he said, okay, I'll give you $500,000. Mark went public and sold the shares to people like you. Well, what happened to Peter? Well, he exited and got a 2,300x return. The wealthy invest in early stage companies, folks. The public markets are for suckers. It's a rigged game. By the way, this happens in crypto as well. It's called pre-sale tokens. This is Solana. Does anybody know this chain? They sold pre-sale tokens for 4 cents. And you can see the date on there, April 5th, 2018. Look at Solana today, folks. That thing's up over 1,000x. The media and Wall Street and all these hype people get you to buy the top. Meanwhile, they put their clients in at the bottom and they use you for liquidity to make their clients rich. You can play this same game. You just have to have the financial education and the deal flow. That's it.
Which is that this is the second largest economy in the world. It has been able to grow at a very high rate for all these years. It has EVs and solar panels and AI, and yet it feels politically insecure about its legitimacy and authority. Therefore, I think the political leadership believes that it borrows legitimacy and authority from the Russian autocracy, right? So after all, it was the Soviet Union that transferred the ideology, the communist ideology, and supported the Communist Party in the 1930s, and then in the 1950s, supported China economically and also not just in terms of money and resources, but also transferred the central planned model to China. So they have this kind of a historical allegiance to the source of their political legitimacy. I think, I may be totally wrong because doing that kind of research is impossible. You don't really know what the political elites in China really think about. But I cannot think of any other reason. And let's just also mention some other brutal facts. Of all the Western imperialist powers in the 19th century, and by the way, Britain was one of them, Russia brutalized China the most. They took about 11% of the Chinese territories. And after the Second World War, they raided the northeastern part of China, the northeast of China. They took over the Chinese territory, raped Chinese women. They did exactly the same thing that they did in Germany, which is that they pillared the Chinese factories and equipment, took them away. Russia, of all the countries I can think of in the world, has been the most brutal to China. And yet the Chinese political leadership has this softness for Russia, which is really, really unbelievable.
To continue watching the rest of the episode for free, visit our website londonreal.tv or click the link in the description below.
Hi, it's Brian Rose from London Real. You probably know that we've just recently been re-platformed on YouTube after 25 months completely in the dark. The truth is, I really need your help. What I really need you to do is click on that subscribe button right now, like this video, and maybe even leave a comment or share the link with friends. We're really fighting against an algorithm that's tried to keep us quiet for so long. And the more subscribers we have, the more people watch our content, the better guests we can bring you, the better content, and we can continue transforming lives. We've been doing this for 14 years now. I want to do this for another 14 years, but I really need your help. So click on that subscribe button, like the video, leave a comment, share this, and we're going to continue to bring you more and more great content. Thank you.